What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Wednesday night. I'm doing a second video today because I've been thinking about the way in which I'm going to present this. We got news from Douglas Dean Johnson, who usually drops these types of updates about legislation and UAP politics. He's one of the people who are more active in the politics side of the UAP issue. Matt Laszlo is another one of them. I think that it's important to have a decent combination of all aspects of UAP. I know there's a lot of people that is really disappointed and in many cases impatient due to how slow this political process has been. And I feel you. I agree. I don't like it either because the way this works, and it's not just with UAP, it's with any laws or legislations that are presented in the floor, is that no legislation ever passes on the first time. It's very rare. I don't know if there's any in history. You guys will correct me, but that's how it works. It works like that in the US. It works like that in Mexico. And Mexico is even worse because there are many legislations that have been there for decades and they haven't passed. So at least in the US, it takes 6 years, and some pass. And I think that this is what's happening right now with the UAP Disclosure Act. Douglas Dean Johnson just announced that the UAP Disclosure Act has been reintroduced. And this is what Douglas Dean Johnson says. Senator Schumer files UAP Disclosure Act, UAPDA, as possible amendment to National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA. Senator Chuck Schumer from New York, the Senate Minority Leader, on July 29th, 2025, filed the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Disclosure Act of 2025, UAPDA, as a proposed amendment, SA 3111, into the fiscal year 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA. The proposed amendment was co-sponsored by Senators Mike Rounds and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. I think Gillibrand is a new addition, so it's not just the Schumer Rounds amendment now, it's the Schumer Rounds Gillibrand amendment now. And then Douglas Dean Johnson says, like UAPDA versions proposed in 2023 and 2024, this one would create a temporary federal agency headed by a presidential appointed, Senate confirmed review board tasked with gathering UAP related information from throughout the government as part of an enforceable, independent, and accountable process for the public disclosure of such records. On initial examination, this bill appears nearly identical to the UAPDA version filed on July 11, 2024. And this would be the third time that it is presented like this because the 2023 one is similar too, including the much discussed provision to provide the review board with power of eminent domain in certain circumstances. No date has yet been announced for Senate floor consideration. In most years, relatively few amendments are added to the NDAA after open debate and roll call votes on the Senate floor, but a greater number of amendments are incorporated into the bill through out-of-sight negotiations. The UAPDA is an unlikely candidate for a full floor debate and roll call vote. Most likely, the sponsors hope to get it added to a negotiated list that will be wrapped into the Senate NDAA in block, as occurred in 2023. Even if the Senate includes this bill in the NDAA that it passes, however, it would remain to be negotiated with the House of Representatives. The version of the NDAA approved by the House Armed Services Committee on July 15, 2025, does not contain any such language. As approved, the Senate Armed Services Committee on July 15 currently contains 3 modest UAP-related provisions. In addition, the committee's official report on the bill contains 2 interesting directives pertaining to the operations of the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. I have previously reported on both the UAP-related bill language and report language. Oh, man. Okay, so
I see my friend Senator Rounds is on the floor and ask him to engage in a colloquy on an important set of provisions in the NDAA that deals with transparency, trust, and government oversight. The Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Disclosure Act that he and I co-sponsored, and portions of which we will pass in the NDAA. I say to my friend that unidentified unanimous phenomena are of immense interest and curiosity to the American people. But with that curiosity comes the risk for confusion, disinformation, and mistrust, especially if the government isn't prepared to be transparent. The United States government has gathered a great deal of information about UAPs over many decades, but has refused to share it with the American people. That is wrong, and additionally, it breeds mistrust. We've also been notified by multiple credible sources that information on UAPs has also been withheld from Congress, which, if true, is a violation of the laws requiring full notification to the legislative branch, especially as it relates to the 4 congressional leaders, the defense committees, and the Intelligence Committee. So the bill I worked on with Senator Rounds offered a common-sense solution. Let's increase transparency on UAPs by using a model that works, by following what the federal government did 30 years ago with the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act. They established a presidentially appointed board to review and release these records, and it was a huge success. We should do the same here with UAPs. Senator from South Dakota, I yield.
Thank you, and I thank my colleague, the Democrat leader, for the opportunity to speak to this particular issue today. This is an issue that I think has caught the attention of the American people, and most certainly the lack of transparency on the matter, which is of real interest to a lot of the folks that have watched from the outside. Well, it brings together, I think, a notable parallel in the withholding of information that about items that are in the government's possession regarding, in this particular case, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. That same approach by government in terms of the possible withholding of information brings more questions and more attention to the issue of the assassination. We wanted to take that same approach with regard to how we could dispel myths, misinformation about UAPs, about unidentified flying objects, unidentified objects that simply have come to the attention of the American people. Congress did pass legislation 30 years ago requiring the review and release of all records relating to that historic tragedy, the assassination of John Kennedy, which has led to the release of a great deal of information. The UAP Disclosure Act was closely modeled on the JFK Records Act.
Say to my colleague from South Dakota, who we've worked with as a great team on this issue and many other issues, I might add, it's beyond disappointing that the House has refused to work with us on all the important elements of the UAP Disclosure Act during the NDAA conference. But nevertheless, we did make important progress. For the first time, the National Archives will gather records from across the federal government on UAPs and have a legal mandate to release those records to the public if appropriate. This is a major, major win for government transparency on UAPs, and it gives us a strong foundation for more action in the future.
I agree, sir. And I think probably the most significant shortcomings that I think we need to visit about as well, shortcomings of the conference committee agreement that are now being voted on, were the rejection, first of all, of a government-wide review board composed of expert citizens, presidentially appointed and Senate confirmed, to control the process of reviewing the records and recommending to the president what records should be released immediately or postponed, and a requirement as a transparency measure for the government to obtain any recovered UAP material or biological remains that may have been provided to private entities in the past and thereby hidden from Congress and the American people. we are lacking oversight opportunities and we are not fulfilling our responsibilities.
Well, I'd like to echo what my friend Senator Rounds has said today and on many occasions. It's essential we keep working on our proposal to create an independent presidentially appointed review board that can oversee UAP classified records and create a system for releasing them where appropriate to the public. Again, as the Senator has said, it's the same method used for the JFK records, and it continues to work to this very day. It is really an outrage the House didn't work with us on adopting our proposal for a review board, which, of course, by definition here is bipartisan in the Senate. Now it means that declassification of UAP records will be largely up to the same entities that have blocked, obfuscated their disclosure for decades. We will keep working. I want to assure the American people, Senator Rounds and I will keep working to change the status quo. And before I yield finally to him, I'd like to just acknowledge my dear friend, the late Harry Reid, a mentor who cared about this issue a great deal. So he's looking down and smiling on us, but he's also importuning us to get the rest of this done, which we will do everything we can to make happen.
I agree with my friend and colleague. To those who think that the Citizen Review Board that would have been created in our UAP Disclosure Act, that it would be unprecedented and somehow it would go too far, we note that the proposed review board was very closely modeled on the review board established in the JFK Assassination Records Act of 1992, which has successfully guided the release of records to the American public on another very sensitive matter of high interest to the American people. And it does one more thing that we really need to recognize, and that is that there is, we believe, information and data that has been collected by more than just the Department of Defense, but by other agencies of the federal government as well. And by allowing for an outside independent collection of these records, we can make progress in terms of dispelling myths and providing accurate information to the American people.
Again, I thank my colleague and pledge to work with him and other bipartisan colleagues in the future to build upon what we've achieved in the conference report. We encourage our colleagues to join us in the further investigation of this issue and in advancing legislation that will complete what we have accomplished in this NDAA.
This is going to be part the news, which I just gave you, and part an analysis based on what I am observing from my position, because this has been a matter of debate for months now. And I've been part of some of those debates. And I've told you before that, for example, Sean Munger's proposal on the debrief, I think that's a more comprehensive and sensitive type of proposal that is being ignored. The main issue here is this. And this is something that somebody who is very known in the UFO community pointed out. And it caused a matter of debate because this is what people have been fighting for since the UAPDA in 2023 was attempted to be passed. I'm going to read it to you again, and then we're going to discuss who pointed out why this is a problem still. And it is. It's still a problem. And I'm going to explain to you guys what the main issue is. Disclosure of recovered technologies of unknown origin and biological evidence of non-human intelligence. A, exercise of eminent domain. The federal government shall exercise eminent domain on any and all recovered technologies of unknown origin and biological evidence of non-human intelligence that may be controlled by private persons or entities in the interests of the public good. And then B, availability to review board. Any and all such material, should it exist, shall be made available to the review board for personal examination and subsequent disclosure determination at a location suitable to the controlling authority of said material and in a timely manner conducive to the objectives of the review board in accordance with the requirements of this division. Now I'm going to tell you why this is a problem based on something that Mr. John Greenewald from the Black Bolt shared. So Mr. John Greenewald from the Black Bolt pointed this out as well on his X account. And it got a little heated in the conversation, and it explains way better what's going on through their lens. Because John Greenewald pointed out, although I will get slaughtered for saying this, I will absolutely repeat what I've said in the past. This language will likely kill the UAPDA inclusion in anything. The language here is much farther reaching than intended, and it won't fly in many circles. I want to be wrong. One of those circles is Brandon Fugal's circle, who, if you guys don't know, owns Skinwalker Ranch. What is Skinwalker Ranch? To those who know, it's a show on the History Channel where a bunch of scientists and this man, Brandon Fugal, have this ranch and have been investigating phenomena in this ranch. And if whatever is happening there at Skinwalker Ranch is true, that means that there could even potentially be something buried under there that could be causing a lot of weird stuff to happen. I don't know if that's real or not. I know that there's a lot of people, a lot of you who like the show of Skinwalker Ranch and believe everything that's happening there. I want to apologize because I haven't looked at it profusely, but I have read Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. And I think that book is really interesting. And I do think that if this eminent domain part of the bill is passed, there's people from that ranch who are not happy with it. And there has been already some evidence that people like Travis Taylor did not like that provision, and Mr. Brandon Fugal didn't either. And he just responded to that Greenewald tweet again. So here is what Brandon Fugal said. He said, anyone who supports this has no desire for real disclosure, as the federal government has demonstrated an agenda focused on disinformation and lack of disclosure. In addition, the very incestuous relationship between the government and the military industrial complex complicates issues. And then Ivan Hanel, who is Lou Elizondo's lawyer, he just came out in an interview with Andy from that UFO podcast, actually. And he stated that there's somebody new who's coming forward with potential firsthand information and firsthand knowledge. He responded to Fugal and said, does disclosure begin with a review board and use the words control disclosure campaign? Would you all feel good about Epstein Control Disclosure Act or a COVID Control Disclosure Act? I know people who privately admit how flawed the UAPDA is, but pay homage to it just to satisfy their fellow insiders. What profiles encourage? Those who are unwilling to fight for liberty are condemned to tyranny. Respect yourselves and demand better. And honestly, I could not agree more, because based on what I've seen and based on these interactions, I think that what's happening, and bear with me here, back when Ross Coulthart had Senator Rounds on his show, Ross was fed up right after the interview, and he said that he was going to start naming names. If you guys can see this bill, it is sponsored by senators, and Ross alluded to senators potentially having been briefed about what's going on with UAP. So they have been shown the classified data because they're the Senate Armed Services Committee and they know what's going on. So this bill is powered by them. And this bill still has that eminent domain that a lot of people don't agree with. And just imagine how the people that are more private compared to Fugal, who is very public, are reacting to this and have always reacted to this and will keep reacting to this if it continues this way. So this bill doesn't seem like they want it to pass. I hope it does. John Greenewald hopes it does. But Brandon Fugal, who has invested interest in all of this, doesn't like it. And there's a lot of people that don't like it. Very powerful people that are very private that we don't know who they are. They don't like it. People from these aerospace companies, presumably, if these crash retrievals are real and if they have this material, a lot of them won't like to give up the goodies to the government and let the government have full control of all of that. And based on how much people overall trust the government these days, I would guess that a lot of them don't like this provision either, because that's way too much power for a government to have publicly like that. So I don't know. I don't think it will pass. I think that if it's the third time, a lot of people expect it to pass like that. I know that there's a lot of debate. There's people that agree with the private parties that don't like the eminent domain and the review board part. And I know why there's a lot of people that think the opposite. I don't know where I stand on this. I'm just telling you what I'm looking at and what I think might happen. It's really hard for this bill to pass. And there's another aspect of it that I think it's worth noting, which is that there's people who are even friendly with Fugal who agree with this. Just to give you an example, Jay Stratton has been at Skinwalker Ranch investigating everything now. And I don't know if he was supported before, but he supports this bill now. And he's really good friends with Travis Taylor, presumably with Brandon Fugal as well. And he said this: I support the historic bipartisan UAP Disclosure Act led by Senator Rounds and Senator Schumer. This legislation endeavors to give the public long overdue transparency on what the US government knows about UAP. It's an essential next step towards disclosure, not just for the American people, but for all of humanity. So, presumably, there could be division already between the people involved there, and everybody has their own version of what disclosure should look like. And uh, the same thing is happening with the hearings, for example. There's multiple parties interested in getting the attention of these Congress people to get people on the stand to testify before Congress under oath. But everybody has their own whistleblower. Everybody has their own witness that they want at the hearing that could presumably happen in September. We still don't know for sure on a date. The same thing is happening. They don't seem to reach a conclusion or common ground on this. And that's extremely frustrating. And that's why I think John Greenewald is correct when he says that it's not going to pass. And that is the same reason why, whenever hearings are starting to maybe happen, there's a lot of things going on in the background that make it difficult for people to believe that these hearings will have an effect. And why is this happening? I ask. I don't know if the current disclosure advocates understand that there needs to be sort of like a common ground that everybody needs to reach. There needs to be a fucking Switzerland where doesn't matter which camp you're on. When you're in there, you know that's fucking Switzerland and you respect Switzerland. We don't have that in the disclosure movement right now. And we need that. We need something like that where everybody has a certain level of respect for what's happening and for pursuing. Everybody should be pursuing, which is finding out what the hell is going on. And that's not happening. It's not happening in the Senate against the Congress. It's not happening amongst the UFO disclosure advocates, journalists, content creators that are involved at the top on this. It's not happening. The opposite is happening. Why is that? I ask. And I don't know. It feels like at least one side is not taking this seriously, or they have their own agenda and their own understanding of what should happen. And that is really concerning because you don't know the real intent. And we need to find out what it is. I don't know if you agree. Let me know what you think about the new bill. I'm going to leave it in the description so you guys can check it out, see what you agree with and what you don't agree with. Do you think it will even be presented at the floor? Do you think it will pass? If it does, what do you think will happen with all of those parties that don't like that eminent domain clause? On the bright side, though, Turner is no longer there in the picture, the Ohio senator. So that's good news, at least, right? One less obstacle for people who are looking after this truth, whatever it is. But other than that, just let me know what you think. What do you think about this whole mess? What do you think about this apparent ego war at the very top? Everybody wants their own version of disclosure. Let me know. I don't know what to think, but I do think that this type of action is needed, but it needs a hell of a lot better communication amongst the people involved in it. And it doesn't have it. We need to talk to each other more. And it's not happening. But let me know what you think. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to please like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. That's all you need to do in order to help us. And it is what helps us the most. So thank you. But if you want to support the channel in other ways, there's a few links down there you can choose from. You can become a member on YouTube, or you can support us through KGRA. Anything you choose to do is always appreciated. So thank you. That's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive like Ivan Hanel. Always. Bye.